Hello and welcome to another episode of Into the Scriptures. My name is Wesley Vital, and today we're going to talk about the difference between Abraham and Lot. And we're going to specifically focus on a chapter, Genesis chapter 13. Now, why are we going to focus on this chapter? There is an event that takes place during Abraham's life and also with Lot as well that shows a distinction of character between the two, where they're going down this walk. And you can see the difference of action taken by Abraham and action taken by Lot. So these aspects that we're about to see in this chapter is applied in our own life. Like the scripture says, everything that's written back then is for our example, okay? Our examples that we learn from. So let's dive right into it. Genesis chapter 13. We're going to start at verse 1. Now, just to give a little overlaps here, we have Abraham coming back from when he left previously to the place of Egypt, and he lied about his wife, and that situation went down. He left because of a famine. Now, of course, the father didn't tell him to leave. He left on his own accord, okay? He left, and you see the outcome of the situation that happened. So now he's returning, and this is where we are in Genesis 13. And it says, "And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. And Abraham was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. And he went on his journey from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai." So I probably pronounced Hai wrong, but Hai. I think this is very interesting before we continue here. So he messed up by going to Egypt, and that situation went down, and he returned. And he went back to the original place. The original place he built the altar. This is what verse 4 says. "Unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of Yahuwah, or the Lord." So here you have a situation went badly. He's returning, and what did he return to? He returned to the original place. The original place he was talking with God. He was talking with Yahuwah, or the Lord. And this is an important example for us. Even though a mistake happened, this is what I see here. Even though a mistake happens, we should always return back to the Father. Did the Father tell Abraham to leave and go to Egypt? No. He left. He left and went. Did he consult? The scripture doesn't quite say about that, and I personally believe he did not consult because he just got up and left, and you see the situation of what exactly happened. But as we continue here, we see, what did he do? He messed up. The situation went bad for him, and he returned back to the original place where he built an altar that he sacrificed to God and talked with God. Now, what's interesting here is that if we look at verse 3, it says he went to the place he had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai. Now, I love Hebrew words, okay? Hebrew words have meaning. They're not just there to be there. Now, check this out. So this place he went was between Bethel and Hai. So Bethel means a house of God, a place in Palestine, but the word itself means a house of God. And then when you look at the word Hai, the word Hai is a place of ruin. So here you have Abraham had this horrible situation, messed up with his lying in Egypt about his wife being his sister, and is now married to him, and that whole fiasco. But here you have him now returning back in between the house of God and the place of ruin. The house of God and the place of ruin. So I thought it was very, very, very perfect in this instant to show us in a perfect example that we, even though we're in between, we're right there at ruin or in ruin, but we should turn to God. We should go to Him, go to His place. We should go to Him, talk to Him in prayer, ask for forgiveness, and return to Him no matter what mistake we made. So here's a great example. And I love the Hebrew words. Bethel, house of God. Hai, the place of ruin. Ruin. He was between there. He was between there and went to the place he made the altar. So let's continue. Verse 5. "And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents, and the land was not able to bear them that they might dwell together. For their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled there in the land. Now here's a good one. Verse 8. And Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray you, between me and you, and between my herdmen and your herdmen, for we be brethren. So, now you're seeing a little bit of Abraham's character come out here, because here's a situation where there's some fighting, strife going on, contention between the herdsmen of Lot and the herdsmen of Abram. And these are the outsiders that it's named here, the Perizzites and the Canaanites. They're watching this. And you can see that Abram here in his character, he's like, let's not fight, we're brothers. And that's exactly what Scripture teaches. Blessed are the peacemakers. Especially when we're talking about brethren. When we're talking about brethren, there's multiple verses of how we should treat one another, how we should be loving one another. Isn't that one of the fruits of the Spirit? That's 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 7. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 7, and to godliness, brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness, charity or love. That's part of the fruits of the Spirit. Now you see Abraham demonstrating the fruits of the Spirit here in this aspect. He doesn't want to fight. Especially you have others watching. So it's very important. Another verse, a second witness, 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8. And above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves, for charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Now, this is, of course, talking about brethren, and the word charity is referring to love. So, how important it is for us to listen to the Messiah when he says, blessed are the peacemakers, especially when we're talking with our brothers and sisters. It is so important because the rest of the world watches. And when they see these things, they see no fruits of the Spirit. They don't see unity. They see disunity. They see something ugly. And that is not how the Bible is supposed to be. We're not supposed to be treating each other like trash. We're supposed to be treating each other like family. Family. Now, of course, there can be disagreements, but strife between it should be squashed. It should be resolved, especially when other people are looking in. Because I've heard the same argument multiple times. Oh, I don't like going. I don't like churches because they're judgmental to each other, and they're just putting everyone down. That's not how we're supposed to be. And because of that, because of the few bad apples, or I say few, but there is a good majority of bad apples out there that's misrepresenting what the Scripture is telling us to do. They're misrepresenting what the congregation or the family or the body of the Messiah is supposed to be. And because of that group, they don't want anything a part of it. And that's why I see here in Abram, when he does this, you can see him portraying the fruits of the Spirit here. Again, let me read verse 8. And Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray, between me and you, between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. We be brethren. Now let's continue. Look what else Abraham says. In verse 9, Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. Now here's what's crazy before we get to verse 10. Verse 9, the owner of this land, or the land was given to Abram from God. Abram should have had the choice. But what did Abraham do? He gave the choice to Lot. It wasn't Lot's land. Lot came with him. It was Abraham, or Abram's at this time, land. But he humbled himself in the seeking out unity with the brethren to stop the strife and seek peace. He gave the choice to Lot. Now let's look at what Lot did. Genesis 13, verse 10. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before Yahuwah, or the Lord, destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So this is before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And you see Lot beholding this beauty. Let's continue reading. even as the garden of Yahuwah, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zihor. And then verse 11, then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves, the one from the other. So Abraham, again, humbled himself. It was his land. It was given to him by God, and gave Lot the choice. And Lot, of course, when he looked, he chose the better choice. And you're going to see a difference between the choices of Abram and the choices of Lot, of how they came about to choose their destination or land that they wanted. Now, Abraham here, or Abram at this time, a clear distinction of, you see fruits of the Spirit here. Humble, meekness, giving what is his to his brother and allowing his brother to choose. Now, it says there was no issue here with Abraham with Lot choosing the better portion. Abraham did not have an issue with that. Let's continue reading. Verse 12. Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. Now, here's an issue. He pitched his tent towards Sodom. Who? Lot. Lot pitched his tent towards Sodom. So Lot, when he was looking at this place of Jordan, he saw the beauty. He saw everything that's there, including Sodom. So he pitched his tent toward Sodom. So he's not in Sodom at the current moment. He just has his tent toward Sodom. Let's continue reading before we hit that. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before Yahuwah exceedingly, or the Lord. Genesis 13:14. And Yahuwah, the Lord, said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. Let's continue. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Then Abram removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto Yahuwah. Now, this is where it gets really good, okay? Why does it get really good? Okay, so you have where Lot made his choice, and he pitched his tent towards Sodom. And you have Abram. Look how he made his choice. Abram waited for the father to talk to him, to tell him. He did not go anywhere until consulting the father. Abraham did not move his tent until he consulted the father. Until the father talked to him, then, in verse 18, it even says it, then Abram removed his tent and came and dwelt in the land of Mamre. So, you see the two different choices here. One, oh, it looks so beautiful and so nice. I want it, and did it. Oh, I'm going to consult the father first. I'm going to wait to hear from him before I make the move. Because this right here, just this, what I just mentioned, what this verse is showing, a perfect example for our lives. We should always consult the father, even though the choice may look so good. Example, okay? Perfect example. Having an opportunity that could be even godly, an opportunity to do ministry, right? Or an opportunity to do something for God. If it is not consulted with God, and it can look so delicious, it can look so appealing, it doesn't matter. We need to consult God, because next thing you know it, and I've seen this by experience. I have experienced it, and I have seen people experience it, where it looks so good, so perfect. They do it, and it fails, or they do it, they get hurt, or they do it and they fall. Now, what do I mean? By my experience so far, I've seen doors I thought has been open to me, but I took it so fast without consulting the Father that then, before you realize it, you're supposed to be doing God's work, but you're no longer doing God's work. Because what ends up happening is the choice I made at the time wasn't appropriate for me. The choice I made at the time had a very bad influence on me, even though it looked so good. It was doing God's work. I wanted to do it. But even though Satan can use these things, we have to understand the enemy can use these things just like he did with the Messiah in the wilderness. What did he use against the Messiah? Oh, he used Scripture. He used Scripture against the Messiah. This is why it's important that we ourselves know Scripture, that we understand Scripture. Because what did the Messiah, to battle Satan, what did the Messiah respond? Messiah responded in kind with Scripture. So the enemy, Satan, likes to use Scripture and twist it. So he will give you options, or try to put options and temptations before you that could be innocent, or it could be perfectly good and be like, wow, it's even including God. But until we consult the Father, it could be our downfall. So we have the example of Lot. Look at Lot. Lot didn't consult the Father. He chose what was perfect for him. He chose what was really nice compared to everything else. And he chose it. And he pitched his tent towards Sodom. And they knew that they were wicked. They knew that they were wicked. And you see a couple, I think it's a chapter or 2 chapters later, you see where Lot is. Where did Lot ended up being? His entire family, they were in Sodom. And look, out of all his family that left, all his herdsmen and everything, how many left? How many left? 3 from Sodom before its destruction. This is why it's so important. It may look perfect. And pitching, this is a perfect example. Like Lot, he pitched his tent towards Sodom. We should not be pitching our tents towards evil. We should not be doing that. We should not be doing that. For me, pitching the tent at this point in time that Lot was doing, he was kind of desiring to be there. It was a nice city, beautiful plain. Everything's nice there. Even though it's wicked, it was nice. And then you see Lot ended up living in it. So here's an example for us to take today. When we have a perfect choice and it's so beautiful and it could be innocent and we don't consult the Father, it could be our downfall. If we pitch our tent towards Sodom, or if we pitch our tent to something that we know has bad influences, even though there could be a good opportunity, but the bad influences, or something that makes me compromise against the Father and his commandments and his Son, that could lead us to do exactly what Lot did. Even though we pitched our tent and we're right outside, we're going to find ourselves inside. If we put ourselves before sin, right in front of sin, we're going to find ourselves in sin. That's very important. Very important. It could be a perfectly good decision. This is why we have to consult the Father in every single decision we make. Because look at Abram. Look at Abram. What did the Father give him? For all the land which you see. Now, what did Abraham see? Was it just Canaan? No. The Father said, look to the left, look to the right, look south, look north. He's saying everything. All the land. It says, for all the land which you see, to thee will I give it to you. To thee will I give it to you. And what land was he in at the time? What land was he in at the time? He was in the land that was already given to him. So this is why it's so important for us to consult the Father first. And let us not pitch our tents in front of Sodom. Because before you know it, just like the example of Lot, we'll be right inside of the wicked city. Right inside the wicked city. And you know, in Scripture, the angels had to drag Lot and his family out. That's why it's so important. This example for us, that's written for our examples, like it says in Scripture. We need to take this in heart. This is not just some story that doesn't fit with me. This is to teach us something, to show us something, to reveal us something. And that's why it's so important. So what I learned from this chapter, and I pray that you learn as well, is first, even if we fall, even if we've fallen like Abram and lied about his wife being his sister in that situation he had in Egypt, return back to the Father. Seek him. Go to his place. Pray. Get on your knees. Ask for forgiveness and continue. You may sit between the house of God and the place of ruin, but going to him is the most important thing. Don't sit in that place. Ask for forgiveness and continue forward. Go back to him. That's the example right in the first half of chapter 13 shows us. Go back to him regardless of the mistake that was made. Go back to him. And then another example. We're talking about our brethren. Let's not strife against one another. We're family. We're family. We may have our disagreements. But let not that disagreement turn into possible hate. Because remember, hating your brother, the Messiah himself says, is murder. Is murder. So let us not do that, especially other people are watching us. They're looking to us. They're looking to us. And when they see brethren not in unity, in disunity, they see the hatred. There should be no hatred, first off. There should be no hatred. And if there is, there's got to be a reason. If we are not peacemakers, we have to self-examine. We have to go back and consider our ways because something is wrong with us. We always like to blame someone else. But in reality, the scripture always teaches to examine ourselves, that we may not be found reprobates. We need to examine ourselves. In Hosea, it's pretty clear. Consider your ways, for you do not know. Let me go to it real quick. Consider your ways. And that is actually, it's Haggai, I'm sorry. In the book of Haggai, chapter 1, verse 5. It says, now therefore saith Yahuwah, or the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. You have sown much and bring in little. But you eat, but you have not enough. You drink, but you are not filled with drink. You clothe, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put it into a bag with holes. Thus saith Yahuwah, or the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. This is why it's so important that we die daily. We consider ourselves daily. We examine daily. Daily. Otherwise, we be exactly what verse 6 in Haggai chapter 1 says. We don't even know our state. We don't even know our state. We could be calling ourselves something that we are not. What did the Messiah said? Many shall call themselves by my name, but I shall not know them. That is so important to consider ourselves, consider our ways, so that we can give a better example, a scriptural example of what it really means to be a Christian, to be Christ-like, to be followers of the Messiah, to be saints, to be a part of the body of the Messiah. So, we have the brethren, and then we have the aspect in Genesis 13 about consulting the Father in every decision, regardless if the decision looks perfect. Consult him, and don't pitch your tent towards Sodom, because you're going to be exactly like Lot if you do. You're going to be outside of it, and then before you know it, you're right inside. So I'm glad we got to do this chapter. I absolutely love this chapter. When I was reading it in my personal study, and I was just looking at the example, because that's how we should all see every part of Scripture, is for our example. That's what Scripture says. So when we read this, let's look for the things to apply into our own lives. So I'm glad we had an episode to do this, and there will be more on this, especially when considering prophetic and the land given to Abraham, because I know there's a lot of contention on that, which we will cover that in later episodes. But I pray that this was a blessing to you, and I pray that you go and study this for yourselves. There's so much verses that connect here that I didn't go through, but go through it, look into it, and apply this in your life. And remember, let's be more like Abraham and not like Lot. Let's consult the Father for everything, and let's not pitch our tent towards Sodom. So stay in the Scriptures, everyone. God bless.